Primordial Radio.
Primordial Radio on this Friday evening. We are going to be playing the brand new Nickelback album, Get Rollin, in its entirety. And to help us along that journey as we go through track by track, I'm delighted now to welcome to the show Ryan Peake. How are you doing, dude?
I'm very good. How are yourself?
Yeah, all good, man. All good. It's great to be speaking to you. First time speaking to a member of Nickelback. Yeah, I've been in radio for coming up like 13 years, and you've eluded me over all these years. So I'm finally happy to to cross this one off the list.
We're pretty slippery, man. I'm telling you. I'm happy to disappoint anytime. Let me tell you.
And I am loving the mustache, a little bit of a goatee as well that you're rocking right now. I was because I was looking at some of the other interviews you've done recently. I was like, that's like a Brian Fantana thing you got going on over there. It's like 60% of the time, it works every time.
Works every time. That's very much the Nickelback motto. I know we were doing one the other day. It's like, I think I got swashbuckler. I'll take that. I mean, that seems pretty, or Count of Monte Cristo, we're chameleons, let me tell you. We got to keep it interesting. So
amazing. So we're going to go through the album in its entirety. Looking forward to this, going through track by track, and we'll talk about the album as a whole too. But we'll get into the first track now, San Quentin. Now, one of the things that I loved about this song was the teaser that you put out for the track, which was the heavy opening to the song. And my timeline was full of metal, and in particular metalcore bands basically tweeting like, oh, so we're going to get like a Nickelback breakdown here. So it kind of seemed like there was an appetite for a heaviness with this song. And I kind of get a sense that maybe that appetite is coming from yourself.
Well, I'll tell you, absolutely. I mean, it's a strange thing, because I did see that kind of being the reaction to the teaser and everything. And I have to be honest, I had never heard the term metalcore. I understand what that means completely. Absolutely. I mean, we just grew up with metal. It was like first it's rock bands and metal bands. They're, obviously very different than thrash, and then there's the death metal. But for us, we grew up listening to a lot of metal and thrash and just straight up rock. But when people were saying, well, is this going to be like the big metalcore album? Is this what it's going to all sound like? And I'm just like, oh no. It's just don't get ahead of us. Don't get ahead of us. Because, and not to disappoint at all, because I hopefully we've delivered on some of the songs, but we normally like to kind of keep a well-rounded style of types of music on the album, a well-rounded album, because that's how we've always been. The last album, Feed the Machine, there's a concerted effort of making a rock record, and it was quite, I think the Betrayal Act 3 on that was one of our heaviest ones we've done as far as rock, and Feed the Machine was quite heavy as well. And so I like that we kind of exercised our rock demons, because not to confuse it, but the album before was a lot lighter. We're like, okay, we kind of did that. Now let's balance this out. We've got to even things out. And now we're back to kind of, this is what Nickelback is. We've been able to dip our toe in a lot of things. And I'd like to think it's believable, because that's what we were steeped in. We were steeped in rock and metal and like Anthrax and Megadeth and Metallica, obviously. And but then rock bands like Cult and, growing up listening to the Guns N' Roses. In the same breath, I mean, I'm a sucker for a pop hook. I mean, I like to write songs, and I like to write things that are catchy to me. And if I did rock all the time, it's almost like listening to it. I think, or pop all the time, or a folk music. I don't know. We like it all. I think I would just get tired of it. So I like all these kind of things. And then that's been the razor's edge for us to walk, is that we do all these things and probably take a lot of heat for not being more one or more of the other. But at this stage in our career, I don't give a shit. So it's like, wow. I hope you enjoy what we've done, and that's kind of the where we're at with this, is like, let's give you a little rock, let's give you a little this, and I really hope people enjoy it. But as far as the teaser you're talking about, that did make a lot of noise, and I like that it was like, is this gonna be a heavy
we put
song?
a thing on our TikTok, and it got like 120,000 views in like a day. It was ridiculous.
It's crazy, but that makes me happy, because especially when people are like, have they gone rock? Have they gone really heavy? I'm like, that means that you haven't heard the old ones. You're gonna like this. Go back and check the old ones. You'll
Go back
be
to Curb,
surprised.
man.
Go back to Curb. Yeah, go back to Curb.
Yeah.
Even
It's
the
there.
state had a lot of rock on the state. I mean, This Means War, Burnt Ground. We got lots of gooders.
Absolutely. You mentioned Metallica, and I was wondering, were you influenced on the video with Metallica? Because for me, obviously the track St. Quentin, Metallica did Say Anger in St. Quentin. And I was wondering, was that like a direct influence, that whole setup of the video from Metallica?
It definitely wasn't. I've never really kind of, to be honest, thought much about that. I know they shot that one in the prison.
So I suppose St. Anger is the one we're not supposed to talk about, but
yeah. You know what? It's like, and that's the other thing too, is like everybody has this or can be stamped with a blemish on their career of some sort. It's like, you know what? This is such a fickle and tough place to be in the creative realm, where you make stuff that people like, and then as much as they're like, oh, this, first hearing it, they're surprised, or they enjoy it and they like it and they settle in. And then when you deviate from that, it could be a problem unless you've done that from the beginning, where you're like, I'm this chameleon, I'm this David Bowie of an artist, where you can just completely shift gears and go, and it works and it's believable and it's true. It's a hard thing to do for your fans, because your fans go like, they want to hear new stuff and your new take of what you do, but they also, I like what I like. And why aren't you playing stuff that I like? And you're like, well, didn't we start this relationship by me showing you what you might like? Like, sometimes we want to try to experiment and do some different things. Like they tried. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't work. So, but as far as San Quentin, it was a completely different, Genesis. The impetus of the song was Chad met the warden from San Quentin, and it literally was that. Here in North America, and for him in particular, there is this it's like saying, I don't know what would be the equivalent, like the Alamo or something like that. It's something with some kind of significance. It's got this weight to the name, because you go, oh, that place. And so in him, he was like, I'm going to write a song about that. And we were going to do it on the top of a building. We were actually going to shoot the video just on top of the building and just have a bunch of people show up. And it was more about just making a ruckus outside was the idea. So I don't think there was any intentional straight lines just going to be drawn between that and maybe Saint Anger, but I could see what you're saying in that sense for sure.
Well, let's get into it now. This is Nickelback, track 1 from the new album Get Rollin, San Quentin. That is Skinny Little Missy here on Primordial Radio, track 2 from the new Nickelback album. And Ryan, we were just talking about Metallica and Saint Anger, but for me, actually, sonically on that track, my first thoughts were like, yeah, this has got a bit of a Black Album feel. And I know you've covered the likes of Sad But True live on stage, and Metallica is a big influence. It kind of feels like you're drawing on the Metallica influence, particularly with that song.
It's weird. If it is the case, it's completely unintentional. But like I said, it's what happens when you plug in your guitar, and I'm just speaking personally. When you plug in your guitar and you crank it up, that's the sound that sends all the bells off and kind of going, this I like this, and I mean, I think you are what you've been raised around to a degree, and sometimes kind of like that's
the analogy of you are what you eat. It's like you are what you listen to.
Yeah, I feel that for sure, and sometimes it doesn't always come out the way you imagine it, because we do listen to just a quite breadth of styles of music, but when it comes to distorted guitars, that's just like a straight line for me. It's just like zerk. It's not out of studio speakers. It's out of like, I've got a big half stack over here that on my right that I plug in and make sure nobody's home, and I crank it up, and then that's where you feel that weight. There's something about that that's just visceral, and for me, that's where it comes from. And if it's from doing that and listening to your the music that the seminal albums for you that you listened to earlier on, if that's where it comes from, that's where it comes from. But man, it just feels right. I don't care who it feels like it sounds like, but that one, I actually prefer the riff in Skinny Little Missy. I think to to San Quentin. I like them both, but I like the feel of that. There's just something about that, just like it does it for me. So.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember the first time you picked up your guitar? Like your very first memory? You're talking about
Absolutely
distortion. Do you remember that first memory of?
I remember the first day. I do, and it's strange. I don't know why it should be like that, but it was my brother got a guitar at some point. It was some cheapy guitar, as it always is, and I remember somebody coming from school, coming over with my brother. They were older than me, and he played drums, and we had a drum set at the house. My dad was a car salesman, so he'd wheel and deal. He'd be like, "I'll trade you this car for this little fishing boat, or I'll trade you this car for this 10-piece Ludwig. Yeah, that'd be great." And so we got to knock it around a bit. I couldn't play it at all back then, but so this kid came over, actually played with my brother. They played for about 10 minutes, and then my brother got tired of it and left. And then I picked it up and I just started playing it through this little distorted amp, but I was just like, it was magic. It sounded like crap. I'm absolutely certain of it. But I think I played Love Bites by Judas Priest.
Oh, nice.
Because it just felt like a one-string song. There was when we were playing there, and I would try to, because it's just on the E string, like, like it, but that's what I could get out of me, and I was like, I'm hooked. I'm absolutely hooked. Then it was Wasted Years by Iron Maiden. Then it was like Wild Child by Wasp. There's some pretty interesting stuff back then, but it just got me, and I'm kind of glad it did. So
I kind of feel like that leads us nicely into Those Days, which is a song ultimately that has like its nostalgic feels in many ways, actually. And I mean this with the greatest respect. This almost feels like Photograph Part 2.
Yep. No, I don't shy away from that at all. Absolutely. I mean, we saw that connection to a degree when we were starting it, and what it is, and I'm trying not to go on too much about this one, but this one, this is the one song that we left the studio. We rented a house in Whistler, which is about an hour and a half north of Vancouver, and we were just like, we did that with the last couple albums to get away from the studio, get out of our heads from that space, and see what else creatively we can get in another place. And so we sat there and we're like, we're gonna write a rock song. Like we've got some songs that are more mid-tempo and kind of melodic. Let's get a rock song. And that's what we came out with. You chase what's there, right? And so that kind of started coming out. And I remember Chad had the line, "Remember when Elm Street came on?" And then we kind of finessed the line, and I went, okay, this is a nostalgic kind of song. We've done that, but this feels like, I like the 80s style of this, because for us, that's the time we grew up. Photograph, the delineation between the two, I think, is Photograph was like, when Chad started that one, was about reminiscing about our hometown when we grew up. For me, it's a bit of a split. I grew up till I was 13 in a different town. And so I've got these, and like, to be perfectly honest, I think Stranger Things pretty much nailed my childhood. Like, it was scary accurate. So I love that show. Hence, I wore that shirt in the San Quentin video. Love it. I was happy to kind of sneak that in there. Yeah. But that's where I was coming from writing that song. And so it felt like a difference to me, where it's like, let's celebrate the 80s, and in the chorus, let's celebrate, the nostalgia of that time frame when you grew up. So maybe it's a bit more general, but it's the movies that, like, for every movie made for us, that was a big thing for us growing up, was like, you couldn't just pick whatever you wanted. You had to go as a group, go to a video store. You had to decide what was there, and that was it. And you all would come home, and it was like this ritual. And there's something that just felt good about that. And for me, that was all kind of when I even went to Hannah to meet the Kruger brothers. So, and in the same breath, a nostalgic song, it seemed like we're going, oh, you're dipping in the same well for like Photograph to this one. It's like, I could totally see that. But then in this, as a creative, trying to be a creative person and songwriter, you go, how many songs are about love? My God. Like, that well has been dipped into 1,000 times. And there's lots of other things that you can write 100 songs about, the kind of similar kind of vibe. But this felt, I was like, you know what? I don't want to do just the good time thing. Let's talk about the 80s. Let's talk, for us, this is our perspective. And then the chorus could be a bit more general. But I think that's something that really connects with people, is that in a lot of tough times and whatnot, they look back. And not even knowing this after the fact too. I heard this little thing about streaming services. They said almost 75% of what people played during the pandemic when they were at home was catalog music, old stuff that they just loved to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, of course. I'm like, I was doing the same thing too. It's like, that's what people love to reminisce and love to, look back fondly on the good memories. And so that's what we tried to tap into. And I don't know, it just felt great. It felt really good.
Let's do this now. Track 3 from the new album, Get Rollin. This is Nickelback and Those Days. Primordial Radio, that is track 4 from the new Nickelback album, High Time, which is out today. So we make sure to go and grab a copy, stream it, vinyl, whatever you want to do. It is out today, so be sure to go and grab a copy. Now, that track, to me, Ryan, has a little bit of you talked a lot about the 80s, but actually had a bit of a country feel to it, to me. Am I on the right track there?
You nailed it. No, you nailed it. And that's again, when that... Chad played that for me at the start when we had to tear down our tour in 2020 and things were full and sure. He played that for me with the phone, or sorry, he sent it to me, and I listened to it. I'm like, that's it's a good song. It's cleverly written. He had written that with another guy, a friend of his out in the valley where he lives about an hour from me. And I said, this sounds like a good country song. And I'm like, I don't know if it's a Nickelback song. It sounds like a country song. Like it was very country. And I think that time, I think his girlfriend was listening to a lot of country, so it was permeating the household. So, but I grew up listening to country, so I'm not. I mean, I have room for that in my life as well. But then I said, listen, if we're going to do this a Nickelback way, obviously we always talk about we can rock it up, a little heavier guitars, and I'm like, I said this. It feels like there's something about like the band has a song called the band, right? Obviously.
The band,
Cripple
yes,
Creek.
course, yes,
yeah,
right,
the
yes.
band, the only band.
Yeah.
I always say that sometimes, and some people don't get it. There's a song called Cripple Creek, and it's like there's that kind of clav in the background, just like kind of growly, but kind of funky, because they were kind of folky-ish, but had a little edge to it. I'm like, maybe we add something like that, and we can kind of bring it around. And it feels like in when we made a lyric video, it was a very van life, California van life. Down the coast thing. I'm like, I get this now. This makes me feel good about it. Yeah, exactly. And that was kind of where we wanted to pull it to, because I think Rockstar may have had a little touch of a twang in it as well. And that just, again, comes from what you listen to. So we're like, I think this is still believable in the realm of Nickelback, but it's stretching it for sure. But I really enjoy it, and I was really happy how it came together.
I think it's come together really great, and I think it's really interesting, the sort of symbiotic nature of Nickelback and country, because certainly here in the UK, country is a genre of music that I would say perhaps is becoming a little bit more accepted. There's some big festivals. I think it's called Country to Country in London and stuff like that. But generally speaking, in the UK, if you say you listen to country music, you're going to get some kind of, some funny kind of looks here and there. And over the years, that's been this sort of the same thing with Nickelback. And although I feel like that, the whole hatred thing is well done at this point, but I kind of feel like, if anyone was able to make country more accessible, it's like you're the perfect band to be able to do that, because you've gone through that
Nashville
experience of being hated.
Yeah, Nashville should be paying us royalty checks. We're making it better for country to be played over in the UK.
Absolutely. All right, well, we're going to get into this next one, Vegas Bomb. Now, I haven't been to Vegas, although I'm very aware of what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So, recommendations of Vegas. I'm sure you've been there over the years. I've not been before. Recommendations on.
Oh my God! I mean, you couldn't have picked the worst guy for recommendations in Vegas. It's Chad. Chad loves Vegas. Of course, that would seem to make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the people in Vegas, but I've said the best thing to do in Vegas is to get the hell out of Vegas. Because it's just trouble. It's just trouble. Yeah. And that could be, that obviously is the attraction for a lot of people. He has this fascination with this drink that they have there. And I don't know who knows about it, but it's about the drink Vegas Bomb. And so we always, in the back of his head, it was like this kind of, he likes the bar chant kind of thing. It just kind of gets people going in his life. And so that's why he's like, well, how can I kind of funnel that into a song and make something like that? So he's always kind of fantasized about making this kind of bar chant. So this is what he came out. This is all Chad. He came out with Vegas Bomb.
So it's a Chad song right here. It is track 5, Nickelback and Vegas Bomb. That is track 6 from the new Nickelback album, Get Rollin. I'm delighted to be joined by Ryan from the band. That is Tidal Wave. And you talked very succinctly about the 80s earlier, Stranger Things, and that for me had a very Def Leppard feel on that song. So was this more of a Chad song, or were you kind of putting your own take into this one?
Yeah, how that kind of happened is we work on songs until a point. It's the way Pro Tools makes it these days, and digital recording is that we can kind of snap between songs obviously pretty quickly, and we get a bit jumpy sometimes when we feel like we're kind of like hitting a wall to a degree with a song. We're like, this part's kind of, I'm not feeling it right now. It's like, and then as we were switching, I think he was just kind of noodling around on the guitar, and had that's just that round around guitar riff, and then. Or guitar, it's not even a riff, it's just like a little picking pattern. And the engineer just kind of adds his drums really quick. He's the producer engineer, Chris Basford, is unreal. He helps with the vibe as much as anybody in the band. He's absolutely amazing to work with. And so he called me, he said, Holly, we just laid this thing down. I'm like just that round and round of the guitar picking and drums. And he played it from the phone, and I was like, I don't even know. That doesn't sound like Nickelback. He's like, no. And I'm like, I'll be out in 35 minutes. Just like, because I was downtown Vancouver. I'm like, headed right out the studio. And then we started working on this thing. And he had, by then he had Loving You is like surfing on a tidal wave. I'm like, I love this. There's something about this that's just not normally us. I don't know if anybody else would pick up on that. But that, for us, we were like, this felt a little bit different. And so we're like, I like the water, surf kind of vibe. And so we started dipping into surfing metaphors and water. I don't even know if people will catch it. I hope they really take a listen to some of these words in this, because we really worked on making it metaphoric and poetic about water and surfing and love and how there's, you can kind of draw some correlation, which again, there's a love song we're dipping into, because I think it always floats back to some relationship, good times, bad times, whatever it is. But we all, strangely, we're just like, man, this one is a standout for us. We really enjoyed working on that song. So yeah, hopefully people get that out of it as well.
Nice. So we'll get into track 7 now. So this is Does Heaven Even Know You're Missing? And this, to me, actually feels like it could be a very personal song about loss. Is it more about an idea of loss, or is it sort of quite specific?
It's definitely not. I wouldn't say it's specific. This one can be thought of that way. The thought of just as a relationship song again. When this is one of the songs. This is an old song. This is a very old song of ours. Chad had started this, I believe, probably 2007, 2008 or something like that. I remember, we were going to pull it out for Dark Horse, and working with Mutt Lang, and I remember we had another song that we liked that was kind of in that same vein, and we're like, it just didn't feel right to kind of put two similar those kind of style songs. We're like, you know what, let's just hang tight, because melodically I think I really enjoyed it. It was strong. And it literally just kind of sat there on the back burner. This next, no, not ready for this album. But when we were taking stock of music, we're like, you know what, maybe this is time. And that's what I love about some of these songs, where it's like you can have a riff or have a song or something that doesn't make it. You don't show somebody, whatever the case might be, and you bring it out at some point, and somebody says, "Yeah, no, actually, that might work. That might work." You feel like there's a bit of. It's nice when something feels a bit timeless. Like maybe it's not exactly dated to something. Maybe it is, but when it feels like it isn't, it's like, okay, well, this might work. So, I mean, hopefully people enjoy it, but this is an oldie from the vault. for sure.
Nice. I love that. An oldie from the vault, but brand new here right now. This is track 7 from the new Nickelback album, Get Rollin'. Does heaven even know you're missing? Primordial Radio, track 8 from the new Nickelback album. That is Still Russ. I'm here with Ryan from the band. And to me, actually, that song, Ryan, feels like it's a great song about vulnerability, because steel, in a sense, this is just my take on the song. Steel is thought of, it's very strong, strong metal, but it's like something as strong as steel is still vulnerable, is still weak. Is that where the song sort of comes from there?
Absolutely. The vulnerabilities of something that, you think is, is impenetrable, or not. I don't want to say bulletproof, but yeah, that's it's that one we talked about. What can it be? Kind of where what direction can it go with? And I guess I don't know. I don't know how candid I should be about this one, just because I remember when we were talking about this, Chad and I were working on separate songs, and we've got that feel in each song, not the feel, but that sentiment about Still Rust. I was working on something I was trying to I was going to pitch to the Justice League, and the latest re-edit, I guess. And so we were talking about the death of Superman. It's like everybody thought him being so impenetrable and bulletproof, and it's like, well, Man of Steel still rusts. I mean, it can. And so it was that sentiment of the potential impermanence of something, and also just the vulnerability. And if it's, he took it in the direction of soldiers, or a soldier of some sort in this one. But I think it's got a bit of weight to it too, the way you talk about it. Our security guard, I said, is it about our old security guard that we've had work? He still works with us, because he was in the army, and nothing is cut and dry, nothing is black and white in those kind of scenarios. And so it's it talks about that perspective a bit as well. So I mean, hopefully, people, if they don't find a connection, they can actually have an understanding of to remember stuff like that. These are, we're still people. So
yeah, absolutely. Is it difficult to be a band that has your heart on your sleeve and be very open with vulnerability? Because I feel like a lot of bands won't go there. We've talked about all of the love songs that are out there, but I think when it comes to songs like this and songs about love, it is the most difficult thing to touch on those subjects without the cheesy aspect and all of that sort of thing. But yet you are just such a heart on the sleeve band. You put it out there, and I think so many are unwilling to do that. Is it difficult to just be so open like that?
It absolutely is. It's difficult to be that open amongst ourselves in the safe space. It really is. Because I mean, people are, I don't know. I think most people by nature are guarded, for sure. People they won't understand. They've never been through this. I don't want people to think I'm weak or vulnerable. I don't want, so you trap all those things. And I mean, for some people, I think it might, they feel like it's doing them a service, but I think when people relate on topics or feelings or experiences, that's where people like that's when you make the deepest connections, especially in music, where you're like, my God, I think they're telling my story. Like this is me. And that can be very broad. It could be so many different types of things. And it's really hard. You can hide them in metaphors, and that's fine too, because that's really, open to, like, you're taking poetic license and open to so many meanings. But when you're very direct about certain things, that's also very hard. When the visceral moments are like, do I tell people, do I show people this part of me? It is hard, but you pick and choose those parts, and you can only hope that someone else can connect with it. And I'm kind of like, I'm even going back as far as like Never Again, whereas, speaking of the domestic violence, it's like when you say that, I love the fact that people come to me and go, I get this. This inspired me to do this. Like, this is how I took it and inspired me to make a change in my life. Those are huge. I don't get tired of hearing those stories, because that's how music works for me. It affects me that way as well.
Story. And I think that's going to lead us nicely now into track 9. This is Horizon. That is track 10 from the new Nickelback album, Standing in the Dark. That very much feels like it could have been a bit of a lockdown song on that one. Obviously, it was an album that was sort of done in lockdown. Would it be sort of like on the right mark there with that track?
That one was more, that one is something we've had for a little bit as well. Chad was working with, this is another one from the Vault, by the way. And it's not that old, but he was working with a producer that we had wanted to work with for a while, but we hadn't hooked up. His name is Arnold Lanny, from Canada here, out by Toronto, and really really nice guy. He almost worked on Silver Side Up. He was almost the producer of Silver Side Up. We just couldn't get something together because we had looked out for him and it just didn't work out. And I guess he's like, that is the biggest regret I've had in my life. And I'm like,
oh God,
yeah. I in one way I hate to hear that. The other way is like, yeah, okay, I understand that totally.
Yeah.
But
it did okay.
But it did. I think people have heard of that album for sure.
Yeah.
It's like another, like a relationship kind of song in that sense, but I really like the vibe and the poeticness of that song, and he had done a couple of songs, and that was the one I just thought, you know what, that one stood out. I think this one should make the album. I think that's a bit of a sleeper song for some people, where it's like it just kind of like I don't really get tired of hearing that one, and we just thought, you know, okay, this mid tempo, just the feel of the song too, just fit the pacing of the album. So we said that's one we can kind of plug in here and I think it'll work.
That's the sort of the all important album flow. I've said it many times.
Right?
The order of which you listen to songs on an album is so important. Playlists are great, but the order of tracks and how you hear them can completely change your listening experience. So I always think that album flow is such an important thing. Ryan, we could talk for so much longer, but sadly, we're out of time. I got to love you and leave you. Before I do, though, I would just like to ask you about tour dates and festivals and such like that. So I don't think you have any dates announced yet, certainly non-UK wise, but I'd imagine there's plenty planned in the diary.
There is a lot in the works. Yeah, we're doing a North American tour starting early next summer. We're gonna announce dates as soon as we get. I'm not sure I think we've got everything locked down. It's like we're beholden to the plan of the managers of what they feel is best time to announce and blah blah blah.
The agents and all of that.
Right.
Yeah. I've been through the rigmarole with your promoters, and Christ, we do shows ourselves where I am the promoter and. Oh, God, it's not fun behind the scenes, man. Folks. It's not fun.
No, logistical hell at some moments for sure. But yes, I mean, it's a world tour. Absolutely. We just want to get out and play. And it's been so long since we have been out playing. So we are definitely coming to the UK. We're definitely coming to Europe. We're definitely going to Australia, and we're going everywhere. So Amazing. You will see us for sure.
Amazing. So one of the biggest rock festival we have in the UK is Download Festival, which is a festival that you guys haven't played before. And there's everyone in the fan forums is always debating about it and talking about it. And if you were playing it, I know you couldn't tell me. But if invited, if Andy Coppin gets on the line and says, guys, would you like to headline Download? Would you do it?
Oh, I think Download's a great festival. I think it's amazing. It's the rock and like the heavier fans, it leans very heavy for sure. It's like rock fans are fickle, I gotta say, and me being a rock fan, it's like they like what's in their club, and they might like other things, but they don't always wear it on their sleeve proudly. And we cover quite a breadth of styles of music, and I think we could definitely hold our own there for sure, because we are a rock band first and foremost. If they called and they wanted to do it, that'd be fine. We haven't done festivals, we just haven't done them. We just don't. We like doing our own shows over there. We did them a long time ago, but I think they might be back on the menu. So we'll just keep your ears open.
All right, Andy, if you're listening, you know what to do, my friend. Ryan, it's such a pleasure to speak. We're going to finish now on track 11, just one more. I get a huge 80s feel to this track, but just quickly sum up this track for us.
Just one more was there's a band called Coleman Hell, and Chad had written this one with Coleman. It's definitely a lot more serious subject matter on this one, and it does sound a bit. It's got for sure more. I don't want to say electro keyboard kind of vibes. It's a lot more in that realm of, if you're familiar with Coleman Hell's music. It's very much a different style, but it was about somebody that lost a baby, is what it was.
Okay, right.
And so it's a heavy song when you think about in that context. So he felt it was something, that he wanted to talk about, and someone he knew. So it comes from an honest place. So anyway,
wow, it doesn't get more heart on sleeve, open and vulnerable than that, which I think is a beautiful way to end the show today. Brand new album, Get Rollin, is out now. This is Nickelback and Just One More. Ryan, thank you so much for your time today.
Hey, my pleasure. Take care.
Primordial Radio.